Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, a new feature where we look back on games that will probably be orphaned on the Wii U. Today's entry, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Tropical Freeze. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell.
How's it going, Patrick?
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good here as well.
Yeah, that's good. I don't even have to ask you.
No, I mean
how
by
you are.
here I mean this side of the table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you were offering that like it is good in here, that we've got like good vibes between us across
Sure.
the table.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
All right. You don't care. Let's talk about the weather.
Hot yesterday, cooling down, supposedly some of that LA rain.
Oh yeah, love that LA rain.
Yeah, we can actually talk about it this year. The hills are green.
Oh sure.
I mean, we can talk about it in the sense that it's here
right.
this year.
We could have
as
talked
in-
about it last year.
I mean, we can talk about it all the time. We do, frankly.
right, because any little bit of rain, we're like, oh dear God, it's raining.
Mm-hmm.
Panic in the streets. Elsewhere, also panic.
Panic not on the streets, talking about how getting on the streets is going to be tough.
That's right. This is the only town I think where people are like, oh my God, it's raining. Let's talk about how bad the traffic's gonna
Yeah.
be.
And we're not proud of it.
No,
We're not patting ourselves on the back for that fact.
No, but I mean, it is an actual thing. Like, because it rains less, there actually is like oil that comes up to the surface. Like, it's not just that we're not used to it; it's that the roads are actually slicker than they are.
This
somewhere
segment
where it
is
rains.
specifically for our LA audience.
Well, no, I'm trying to explain to the non-LA audience why
They don't care.
they don't care. All right, Mark, what you been playing?
Been playing some Breath of the Wild.
Boy, howdy. Me too. Where are you in the game?
I mean, what does that even mean?
Great question. Tell me something you've accomplished.
Okay, so way out on the east side, on the ocean, on a peninsula,
Mm-hmm.
is a shrine.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the shrine, but its test is a moderate test of strength.
Yes.
And
This is the one by the second village that you go to?
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
close to the second village. You
The,
can
like,
see it from the second
Hatenu
village.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have like amazing equipment, but I went into it and I really loved Bloodborne on the PS4,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the fun of that is like encountering a boss and just like fighting the boss and figuring out the boss and then coming close to death, but then finally like killing it, and just
Right.
that like sense of relief and like excitement that you accomplished it. Because when you die, it's your own fault.
Right.
And that's how I felt when I was up against this trial. And I used like all of my weapons, all of my shields, like everything I had.
Right. You're throwing
take it
torches at
down.
it. Yeah.
But when I finally did, I was like, yes! I felt so awesome. And then you can paraglide over to this other island, that's this small island that's in the middle of the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a shrine on it, and I went inside and it was a hard test of strength, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm out of here. I'll be able to teleport here in the future because I opened it,
Uh-huh.
but there is no way I'm going to be able to accomplish it, especially since I had just spent all of my weapons
Right. That's-
defeating the moderate one.
So I had a similar experience with my first and second Hinox. Hinox, I think. Hinox is how you would pronounce it. Those giant cyclopses that are like sleeping in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
That you can like come upon them and wake them up. And the first one I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this guy down. And I'm shooting arrows in his eye. I'm throwing sledgehammers at him, doing everything I can to finish him. And I do, and I'm like, yes, I'm the best. It's basically the same story, but just with
With a different creature.
yeah. And also like I stumbled upon another one minutes later and was like, oh, I can't fight another one.
I haven't fought any of those mini bosses yet. As soon as I see them like lumber up
Yeah.
and the health bar appear, I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm out of there.
If you have a health bar that doesn't follow you around, like forget it.
Yeah.
I recently encountered my first divine beast in the realm of the Zora. And I like you do a little thing where you fight it and then you go inside, and that's like the first dungeon that I'm actually engaging in, and that's where I am right now. It's very like it's weird how much the game changes when you go inside an actual dungeon. Because the rest of the game is so open and so like free, and the dungeon's like, yeah, you can't climb on the walls in here. Like, calm down.
I mean, that's true of the shrines as well.
Mhm.
You can't, like, in the shrines.
Yeah, but the shrines are so like small and enclosed that it's like
That's true. And there's one thing that you, like, one
Yeah.
little puzzle that you're figuring out in each one.
yeah, and maybe you like do 3 variations on it and then it's done. But it's never like a whole thing to figure out.
How are you feeling about the odd shrine that has motion controls?
I mean I feel like I encounter them so infrequently that when it is one of those, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like,
Fine.
I'm not, I don't mind them.
yeah,
Like, you have to, like, move something. They're, like, usually, like, little puzzle games where it's like you have to use the controller to move something into position, or to like move like
Yeah.
like a marble maze, like try to move something out of it.
and the thing that makes it feel like unified with the rest of the game to me is that you can tell it's still using the same physics. So like the ball still rolls around the same way that like a boulder rolls when you push it. And I don't. It seems like such a like pointless thing to grab.
No, but
onto,
it does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because the motion controls, it doesn't make it feel like it's like weird or floaty, or you don't know how something's going to react to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still loving this game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still think at some point we should do a deep dive into it, but
It's
who
gonna
knows
be-
when that'll be?
It's
Because
gonna
I
be
haven't
so
even
long.
I haven't even headed towards a single divine beast yet.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think you could reasonably play this game for 20, 30, 40 hours before actually like engaging in the story quests at all, and have a great time. I don't know how many hours I've logged in this game.
I don't know either.
I kind of don't want to know. I kind of just want like my experience to just be like a wash, you know? That it's just one continuous thing that just happens.
We're also playing the original Legend of Zelda for the NES.
Yeah, we are. And you can listen to our commentary of that on our mini episodes. There'll be one posting this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And then one posting, we think the Thursday, we're going to take a break. Like, we're going to do this every other week schedule
Going forward.
for the mini episodes.
Because because we kind of with the Metroid Prime or Metroid Other M,
That's right.
we did it on a weekly schedule, and with the Legend of Zelda, we've kind of fallen into a bi-weekly schedule for these mini episodes, and we think that's going to continue just because because it makes our lives so much easier to do it that way.
Well, look, here's the thing: is that to do a mini episode, it's not just you and I talk about the game for 20 minutes, right? It's we have to get together and play together, and then talk about it.
Our life is tough.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying: is that playing video
Pity
games?
us.
Should I stop with my explanation? Then
No,
is that what you're
no.
suggesting? No, so it's just yes, it fits better into all of our lives to do it on an every other week basis. So that's
So if you're wondering where they've
Mhm,
been,
mhm.
that's the plan going forward. We will still have a regular episode every
Every week.
Tuesday
every week,
without fail.
that's right.
That is our promise to you.
That's the Nintendo Cartridge Society promise.
The mini episodes, we plan to do one every other week. We'll see how that goes.
We will indeed. Mark, have you been playing anything? Well, so we've also been playing a Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, which is the topic of today's
So
episode.
we'll talk about it a little bit later.
So we'll push it down the road a little bit. I've been playing also a little bit of King of Fighters 94.
Now, this is the Neo Geo game that you downloaded for the Switch,
That is correct.
and you have played it before, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, a little bit, but you
yeah.
were like a little familiar with it.
Yeah, and actually, once I started playing it, I didn't know whether I was familiar with King of Fighters 94 or just other King of Fighters games that came out around that time. It's neat, and the emulation is feature rich. A ton of different like filters and ways that like you can present it. When you and I talked about the Neo Geo arcade classics a couple weeks ago, I think you said that like the emulation wasn't great.
Yeah, because it was
something.
before the patch had been released.
Mhm.
Hamster, which is the company that's doing these, since then released a patch that is supposed to fix a lot of these issues.
And I mean, having not experienced those issues, it just seems like it's a great way to experience these games.
Is the Neo Geo a 16-bit system? Or like 32?
That's a great question. I think it's 32.
Or was it an arcade? Like,
I mean, it's an arcade cabinet,
okay,
basically. But like you could get the like a box that was basically doing the same thing that you put these like giant cartridges.
Oh, so it must have been enormously expensive.
Yeah, of course. So I mostly just experienced them in arcades. So yeah, and when more of these come out, I'll grab some more of them. But it'll be like a selective thing. Like these games aren't great necessarily.
Well, how would you say? Because I feel like of my video game playing friends, you're the one who plays the most fighting games, the most like regularly, and I'm wondering how you feel it stacks up, or how it like holds up.
King of Fighters, specifically. I don't. So I think there is like real depth there. The game is strange because you pick a team, you pick like a country basically, and there are like 8 countries to choose from, and each country has 3 fighters representing it, and so those are your 3 fighters. So there's not like a whole lot of there are a lot of characters, but there aren't really a whole lot of options as to how to play the game.
And do each of those 3 characters control the same?
Completely differently.
And then is this for like, and this is, I'm assuming, like a story mode type thing, but basically you're trying.
This is how the game, like if you're doing one-on-one,
each time
there's
a match, you choose which one of these countries.
One of these countries, that's right. And so
are they real countries, or are they?
The USA, Japan. Those are Street Fighter voices right there. But so you pick one, and then it's 3 characters from the King of Fighters series, which is also a kind of mishmash of all the other SNK fighting game series. So you get your 3 characters against another country's 3 characters, and you get to decide the order that they're fighting in. But it's kind of, for as many different characters as there are in the game, it still is like, well, these are my 3 guys.
And is it a one-on-one match, or when you get like when one character gets KO'd, another one like tags in?
So I mean, it's essentially like that, except the match ends, like the round ends.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, my number 1 goes up against your number 1, and then if you win, then my number 2 goes up against your number 1. Until we're out of characters. And when at the end of the round, the winner restores gets a little bit of health back.
So for a dummy like me, who's like most like Street Fighter 2 on the SNES is probably the Street Fighter that I've ever played the most, would you say this is a comparable experience, better experience, different experience?
I would say comparable but less good. Like Street Fighter 2 is what, for being one of the first like real one-on-one fighters, sort of nails it, like there are so much of what's successful in fighting games going forward is what has borrowed from Street Fighter 2. Like Mortal Kombat got turned into a real fighting game the second it was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe we should be able to acknowledge like interrupts and frame data, and people have different animations for everything, and defining the hitboxes in the same way. And I think this is doing that, but just not quite to the level that Capcom does in Street Fighter 2. And some of the just like base character moves are a little wonky. So like generally speaking in Street Fighter, if you're like down and a hard kick, you know that you're going to get like kind of a straight forward or like forward and down kind of motion kick. But some of these guys do like a crouching kick that's like up in the air a little bit. And so like some of the directions, it's a little less intuitive than Street Fighter. But I think Street Fighter and Capcom are just tighter at design than SNK is.
Part of the reason I've never gotten into fighting games is because I don't have the patience to like learn the moves, learn the different like button combinations you need to execute the moves, and like to parry and like block and all that kind of stuff.
You hate blocking.
I hate blocking. In our playthrough of Zelda, that's very apparent. I just run in and die constantly because I'm just like, whatever, I'll just hit it with my sword.
Right.
But so I don't have and I'm wondering how it is when you are starting up a new fighting game that you are not super familiar with and you haven't played that much before, and it's not like a continuation of Street Fighter where you have muscle memory. How do you learn it? Are you looking it up in a guide? Are you just experimenting? And are the basic fighting game mechanics that have maybe been cribbed from Street Fighter 2 over the years or whatever it is the same over or similar over a lot of fighters that you're like, I go into it kind of knowing how something will work and you just have to find the finesse?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of Capcom and SNK fighters do use like the same basic playbook. Back is block. If you're blocking a low attack, you also need to be blocking.
And this probably comes from like the arcade roots with like a
joystick.
Yeah.
Which is also, I mean, that's part of the Neo Geo's like infrastructure, is that like you play it on a joystick and 4 buttons. So like that's another thing that all SNK fighters have in common, is that they use either a 3 or 4 button setup, where most Capcom fighters are 6 button setups, with the exception of the Marvel vs. Capcom games, which do use either a 3 or 4 as well. But so yeah, it's a lot of the same sort of, like you throw the same way. They have a similar, like, Mortal Kombat will focus on being able to do like a gory finishing move, and like Tekken is going to be more like slower timing based and allow you to move in 3D space. Ditto Virtua Fighter is what.
But how are you learning it?
How am I learning
like
it?
do you look it up to like choose a character and then be like, let me look at his moveset? Do you use the pause menu and like look at the controls?
Look at the frame data and stuff? No, I mean, I'm also not that good at fighting games. But when I do really get into them, I'll watch videos of people doing combos with the characters and like breakdowns on them. When I got really into Street Fighter 4, I was at eventhubs.com every day, just to see like new videos of how people are doing stuff, and just kind of getting into what the community is doing. But that, I mean, when you do that, that's like a deep dive. You got to really want it. I tried to do that with Skullgirls when it came out. Are you familiar with Skullgirls? It's like a throwback, very a Marvel vs. Capcom or Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 2 style fighting game, but it's new and all hand drawn art, and it's very pretty. And there's a big scene around it, but like it's just learning another set of particulars that kind of turned me off to it ultimately. And I think this is what a game that I'm downloading like this, I am just it's a disposable experience for me. I'm not going to get into it the way I would another fighting game. But I do hope to apply that kind of energy to Pocket Rumble when it comes out, the one that's like a fake Neo Geo Pocket fighting game. I'm really looking forward to that. Well, great. I'm sorry I talked so much about fighting games. Mark, let's get into the news.
Hey, remember Super Mario Run?
Mark, I do.
Remember when that was a thing?
I do.
Like a big deal?
I remember it well.
Well, finally.
Finally.
It's coming out on Android.
Okay.
On the 23rd of March, so this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And on that same day, iOS users are going to get an update to version 2.0.
Now, that's the part that seems like the more interesting piece of news to me. Because, I mean, obviously, because I've had access to it forever.
Right.
Tell me about 2.0.
So, from what I could find, there's not a ton known about it.
Yeah.
We know that we're getting new Yoshi colors
Great. Give me a pink Yoshi.
and new characters to play as.
What is that? What?
I think but fingers crossed for Wario or Waluigi.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Give me Wario and Waluigi.
If it's a baby, I'm going to be so annoyed. I hate those things.
Okay, but what if it's baby Mario, baby Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi?
Fine. You take the good with the bad.
What if you can double tap the game as Waluigi to make him fart? Or Wario, both of them.
Or Wario. Or just if you could double tap it every time they just go, wow.
Wow.
I would love that. It would make me play this game again.
I don't care who the new characters are. I'm gonna play the game again. I really liked Mario Run, so I'm excited for.
Yeah, I really
liked
liked it too. And I still haven't gotten all the black coins,
Mm-hmm.
so I should go back and do that. It's just weird to me that it's coming so late on Android, like after Fire Emblem Heroes has been released and all of that.
Yeah, that's right. On both platforms, too.
Yeah. So this is some good news. If you're out there and you're looking to get a Switch, Nintendo plans to double Switch production next fiscal year. So the current fiscal year for Nintendo ends at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they released the Switch when they did, because they promised they were going to get it out this fiscal year.
Right.
And they did. So originally they planned to produce 8 million Switches next fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So from April 2017 to the end of March 2018. But they plan to double that. So they are going to produce 16 million Switches over the next fiscal year.
So they're obviously feeling good about how the thing launched, feeling good about the demand for it,
mm-hmm.
and are going to try to meet that demand, or what they perceive the demand to be.
Yeah, and so if they successfully sell 16 million Switches over the next fiscal year, they will have pretty much blown away the Wii U's lifetime performance.
Yeah, because the Wii U's lifetime performance is like sub 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they are feeling very good about this thing.
I think that's not just possible but likely. I have friends that want this thing and don't have it. I took it with me to lunch today, and my waiter was like, "Oh man, I wanted to get one of those, but it was sold out."
Yeah, we kind of talked about in the past about like Nintendo having a moment, and they have done a really good job of building momentum around this thing. And I think it has a really solid first year lineup.
Mm-hmm.
If Pokemon like Eclipse or Stars or whatever they call it ends up coming out on this thing in the winter, plus Mario, plus
plus Zelda is still happening.
a Mario Kart comes out in April, and now that I have the thing in my hands, I'm like, this is a killer app.
Yeah.
So it'll be now. They of course in the past couple of years have had a history of overestimating demand. There were a few years where they expected to sell a lot of Wii U's, and that did not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just different all around from the Wii U.
Totally agree. And Nintendo generally is a really cautious company.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't write this down, but earlier today, an executive from GameStop was talking about what that they feel very good about the launch. I think the exact phrasing was like that it was phenomenal. Has one of the highest attach rates in recent history, which makes sense because of Zelda. They're selling like,
and you have to buy something for it,
and accessories, which for the consumer that doesn't mean anything to us, but is great for GameStop because it means more money.
More money.
and he was saying that at this point he feels like it could sell as much as the Wii after 20 days or whatever. I don't know that anybody can say that.
I mean, look, we all heard what my parents had to say about this thing last week, right? They thought it was fun, but like, nowhere are they buying it.
I mean, did they buy a Wii?
No.
But so basically it's just like there is a lot of momentum behind this. I think it would be really good for Nintendo to sell 16 million of them, and I think it's a good sign that they are very happy with this launch, that it still remains in like such high demand. Like our friend before the Switch launched asked like what the odds were they were going to get one if they didn't pre-order, and I said it would be hard for the first couple of weeks, but I thought within a month he'd be able to walk into a store and grab one, and that is clearly not going to be the case.
Well, within a month, we've got another news item about this later on, so maybe we should just keep cracking for right now.
Sure. So, Sonic Mania got delayed from spring. It's now going to release in a nebulous summer timeframe,
Okay.
but it's coming on the same day and for the same price on Switch as other platforms.
Can we just to clarify which game is Sonic Mania?
So Sonic Mania is the throwback title.
Okay, that's the one where it also like remixes some of the old experiences.
Yes.
Got it.
And then Sonic 2017, which is like the modern 3D Sonic, that is now titled Sonic Forces.
Do we know anything else about Sonic Forces?
We probably do. I could not care less about 3D Sonic, and I can barely care at all about 2D Sonic, so I didn't even bother to look.
There's a lot. Sonic.
It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And I completely accept that because I was a Nintendo kid growing up, and I did not own a Genesis. I haven't owned any Sega system, so I'm just not familiar with it.
Let me ask you this. Is there any Sonic game that you have bonded with?
No.
Not a one?
Nope. I think I will pick up Mania.
Okay.
Because I really want to figure out Sonic. Because I feel like I always tried to play it like a Mario game. And you clearly can't do that,
right.
But it's just a type of platformer that I don't understand, and I would like to.
Yeah. I've got like a couple soft spots for a couple Sonic games, including a 3D Sonic game. I like the original Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast.
Is the Dreamcast the only Sega system that you owned?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's correct. So that could certainly be part of it. That it was. I had a new toy, and the only thing I could play on it.
I wasn't trying to psychoanalyze your
no,
Sonic love.
Mark,
I was just
Mark, you got me.
I was just wondering.
That's the only reason. But yeah, I mean, I'm always sort of paying attention to the Sonic games, just because there is such this like huge audience for them, like built in. Like there must be something they see, and not just like I don't know. I can't talk about it without getting too weird.
Well, I mean, I say this with all the love in my heart, but modern Sonic fandom seems to kind of be split into two groups. One that like loves the early games and like the games themselves, and then a group of people who enjoy the world of Sonic.
Yes,
and it's
making the characters touch each other in naughty places.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so it's sometimes difficult to see where the two.
Yeah, like I'd like to somehow get all Sonic fans in a room and just be like, how many of you are here for this and how many of you are here for this?
Exactly.
I just want to know.
I just want to know. No judgment.
Right, because if
genuinely interested.
If 90% of the people in that room are like, oh, I just want to draw pictures of this, then I'm like, okay, great. I don't need to do Sonic anymore. That doesn't need to be something I pursue at all.
Where can people send their hate mail, Patrick?
Oh, if people want to send their hate mail or their erotic drawings of Sonic the Hedgehog, they can send them to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com.
And Patrick will go through every one of them.
I will go through and read every single one.
So Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, it's a package for the Switch, was I think a Japanese launch title, but was never confirmed to come to the West. But it looks like it is coming, and that Nintendo will be the publisher. So GameStop started taking pre-orders, and it lists Nintendo, not Square Enix, as the publisher. And it's not super surprising because Nintendo has published in recent history all the Dragon Quest games that have come west.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't
think on Nintendo platforms, they're not like Dragon Quest builders on PlayStation Vita. They're not.
That's a good point. But the full Dragon Quest games and remakes,
okay,
because those in Japan have all been released on the 3DS or the DS.
Right.
Like Dragon Quest 10 was originally on the Wii. Of course, that didn't come over here, but Dragon Quest 9 was a DS exclusive.
Yeah.
And the only reason any of them most of these have come west is because Nintendo published them.
Yeah.
So So maybe it's coming out here, but really it gives me hope that we will see Dragon Quest 11 because that I am very interested in. We know that there's a Switch version coming, and we know there's a 3DS version coming, and they're also making a PS4 version. We don't know
which
yet.
is different.
We don't know yet if the Switch version is the PS4 version or the 3DS version. I'm operating under the assumption it's the PS4 version, but that's based on zero information.
Right. It's based on hope.
Yeah, but either way, I really want that game to come out here because I love Dragon Quest.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully that's what that means. Square Enix's official account for the Seiken Densetsu franchise has tweeted out a video of 2 people playing Seiken Densetsu 3.
Let's put a pause here because Seiken Densetsu
2 you're probably familiar with as Secret of Mana.
That's right.
For the SNES in the West. And this third game, which was released for the Super Famicom in Japan, has never come out anywhere outside of Japan.
This is eerily similar to the Earthbound journey, right? That we didn't get the original Mother game. We got Mother 2 as Earthbound, and then Mother 3 is this legendary thing that we never saw. Ditto with the Secret of Mana series. We got the second game as the first game, and the third one is this mythical one that we have never seen.
And I really love Secret of Mana.
Oh, it's such a good game.
The music is great.
Mm-hmm. Awesome sprite work. Big, beautiful sprites.
It's really gorgeous. And the third game is supposed to be really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're hoping this means that it's coming to the Switch.
That would be great.
That maybe is this Neo Geo type thing. Maybe as part of the Virtual Console, whatever that is. But I don't think it'll be localized.
But the thing with the Switch is that it is region free.
Absolutely, I speak zero Japanese.
Right, but the games are mostly hack and slash anyway.
Right.
It's speaking so confidently. It's gonna be so hard to play this game in Japanese.
But yeah, that would be cool as a fan of that series. Theoretically, having only played one of those games.
Yeah.
Games Industry Japan posted an article, and this information was translated by Nintendo Everything from a Game Creators Conference joint session with reps from Nintendo and Capcom. And in it, Nintendo and Capcom discussed Switch's performance and specs, and basically saying how before it was released, Nintendo came to Capcom, and Capcom asked them for more RAM because what Nintendo had originally planned to include wasn't sufficient for Capcom's new RE engine, which is running Resident Evil 7, and presumably will run games in the future. And so the exact memory specs that Capcom requested is what Nintendo ended up putting into the Switch.
That's fascinating, right? That Nintendo is hey, Capcom, a company we sort of have an okay relationship with.
Historically, yeah. More recently,
no,
they don't have much of a relationship.
Yeah. And they're just hey, what would you guys want on this thing? And Capcom's more RAM. And Nintendo's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it shows how different Nintendo has been operating on the Switch.
Yeah.
Indie developers only have to, and this is partly a function because it's region free, but they only have to submit one version of a game for certification versus all the different versions they had to submit before for the different regions. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just shows they kind of went into this being we need it to work.
Yeah, we need it to work for everyone.
Yeah. And
or at least more people.
So Capcom says that they are trying to make the RE engine compatible with the Switch because they have to make it work in the docked mode and undocked mode, all that kind of stuff. And they said it's difficult work, but they would like to put in the effort to achieve it.
So that's just the difference of how much power the thing gets, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Would be great to see. Man, that would be crazy. Resident Evil 7 on the Switch.
Yeah, I wonder how that would work because one of the big selling points of Resident Evil 7 was the was VR. Oh, I guess that's only on PlayStation, right? That's a
Yeah,
PlayStation
that's right.
exclusive.
Well, and I think even for the like it was a big selling point if that's something you were going to do with it, but like I don't know, I think lots of people tried it if they had it and then were like I can play this game either way.
I mean, we're both in
Climate change deniers?
No, that's absolutely not true. That I want to make that very clear. This is not. I'm not joking.
Mark, come on. Come on, man. Come on, man, just joke with me, man.
That bit is not funny. I'm using my bit veto power.
Oh man. Okay. All right. We are a little bit VR deniers, though.
We are VR deniers, but
Yeah.
we both love Resident Evil.
Absolutely.
And I haven't picked up Resident Evil 7 yet, partly because I didn't intend to. I wasn't going to play it at launch, so I'm like, why not wait for a price drop?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. But I guess if it came out on Switch, I would potentially be interested in just picking up that version.
Yeah, me too. But I also don't know that Resident Evil is the kind of game that I want to play
On the go?
on the. Yeah, I don't look. I can go to a restaurant and pull out Zelda. That's fine. Go to a restaurant and then like Resident Evil and someone's like chasing me with a chainsaw. That seems weirder to me.
Yeah, that does seem weirder. But we have shame, so.
Oh yeah, that's true. We do have a lot of shame.
Much.
With
Oh, so much shame.
shame.
Speaking of Capcom, last week they announced the Disney Afternoon Collection, which bundles together 6 classic Disney games. Though all 6 titles were originally released on the NES, there's no Switch version scheduled for release. The collection is coming to PS4, Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows on April 18th. It includes Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers 2, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, DuckTales 2, and Tailspin.
Why isn't this thing coming to the Switch?
I mean, it's not like the Switch has a huge install base at this point.
That's fair, but it also seems like this would be the perfect like I don't know that it's that same like nostalgia play.
100 that Nintendo is banking
Yeah.
on, basically. I 100% agree.
And especially with Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers being a 2-player simultaneous game, if you could just rip the Joy-Con, you could have it at a party or wherever you are and pull off the a party or wherever.
I mean, because we go to parties all the time,
Right.
So a party's a very casual
Like,
thing for us.
Where do I go?
I'm at
I
a
go
party.
to parties. I go.
To work, I guess.
I guess it's really just parties.
Work is really just another avenue to a party.
That's right.
So yeah, it is. It's a bummer that it's not on Switch.
Mhm.
I would love if down the line it does come to Switch.
I mean, down the line's going to be too late for me because this is a day one purchase.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
Patrick. I mean,
Yeah.
so we'll get it on PlayStation.
Oh, so speaking of the Neo Geo games,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know when exactly they'll release, but Hamster sent out a list of the games that'll be in the next round,
Okay.
and it is going to be Alpha Mission 2, Fatal Fury, Metal Slug, Neo Turf Masters, Samurai Showdown, Sengoku, and World Heroes. And that last one is one.
Right. Sengoku
Title.
and World Heroes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think Sengoku is a fighting game, as is World Heroes, and that's kind of when they start like just merging all of their fighting series together. I'm excited about Samurai Showdown. I wish that was Samurai Showdown 2.
Is that another fighting game?
Yeah.
Oh.
Also Fatal Fury. Like the Neo Geo was a lot of fighting games.
All from the same publisher, all from the same developer, all
Yeah.
from SNK.
Yeah. Which is why they all like show up in the
King of Fighters.
King of Fighters.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
And then in there are Capcom versus SNK and SNK versus Capcom games, which just jams all the possible fighters into one game, because that's what a fighting game should be.
Takashi Mochizuki. I'm so sorry because I probably butchered that name.
See, that sounded pretty good.
He's a thank you. A Wall Street Journal reporter based in Japan asked at a press event for Monster Hunter Cross XX. We still haven't figured that out.
Definitely not 20.
Asked about Monster Hunter on Switch, and producer Shintaro Kojima said, quote, "Hope you enjoy it on 3DS first."
Boy, is that a non-answer.
So we haven't heard anything about Monster Hunter on Switch, but it genuinely just makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Like, where else is that franchise going to go?
I mean, it could stay on the
3DS.
3DS forever and keep 3DS alive forever. But
And
like,
I wouldn't be surprised if the next game that's announced is either like a weird cross-platform thing or
cross.
yeah, or maybe like this like Monster Hunter cross because Monster Hunter usually has like a not remastered version, but like a like almost like a Game of the Year edition where
Yeah,
they
sure.
like plus it and include a bunch of stuff. So maybe that's what will end up on Switch first, because I do think they'd be kind of silly at this point to drop the large install base of the 3DS and put their new title exclusively on Switch.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to me to see how many people are still playing 3DSs throughout the course of this year and through next year. Just because the Switch seems like it's such a better solution for gaming on the go.
Totally, but a lot of people will still own a 3DS.
For
you
sure.
know, so like they might be. I mean, there's a new release this week, Bye Bye Box Boy,
Mhm.
or Bye Bye Box Boy,
Bye bye, box boy.
that I'm interested in. I'm dreading opening up my 3DS,
Yeah.
but I might buy it. And a lot of people love Monster Hunter, so if that's the only system it's on,
Right.
the 3DSs aren't all like disappearing.
I know they're not. It's disappearing from my memory and my heart.
Absolutely.
Already.
Yeah. I mean, that's how honestly, that's how I am with the PlayStation 4 at this moment too. Like
Yeah.
the Switch has
All other things are dead to you.
yeah. Nintendo is registered speaking of the 3DS continuing, Nintendo is registered for a trademark for Miitopia in the US.
So we talked a little bit about Miitopia,
A
right?
little bit, because there was like a Japanese exclusive direct for it
That's right.
because it has already been released in Japan.
Right, and it looks like a regular kind of turn-based role-playing game, except all of your characters are Miis. And they do magic spells, and they have your friends' names and everything.
So if they're bringing that west, it makes sense to me because again, you have a large install base that you can still sell games to.
Sure. I mean, it just seems like it's such a weird game. I don't know. This is all rooted in my like, what? I gotta pick up my 3DS again?
Totally. But to me, it kind of reminds me of the end of the Wii's life when all of those, what was it called? Operation Rainfall. That was like the fan name for those games, right? Like Pandora's Tower.
Oh,
and
sure.
Where like Nintendo had not put any of those games out for the Wii. They never localized them from Japan. And then at the end of the Wii's life, they were like,
Here you go.
here you go.
Here you go.
And that's kind of what this feels like to me, where it's like, all right, we're not really developing new games. I guess there's that Pikmin game coming, but we're not really developing a lot of new games for the 3DS. So
I mean, Fire Emblem
Echoes.
is still on its way.
So yeah, this kind of just feels like the end of life, where they're like, okay, here's another thing we can release without putting too much effort into it for the 3DS.
I mean, just like we got the Bomberman 64 on the Wii U Virtual Console
Right.
last week.
It's just like throwing people about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we talked about earlier about people being able to walk into stores and buy Switches. So this week, possibly starting as early as the 22nd of March, which is Wednesday, GameStop will have more Switch to sell in store. It's going to be in store only.
Yeah.
It's not clear if it's going to be on like first come first serve, as in it seems like, just from what I've been reading online from people who work at GameStops, that it's like as soon as the shipment comes in, which could happen at 11 a.m., it could happen at 1 p.m., they're just going to open the box, and anybody who comes in and says, do you have a Switch? They're going to give it to them. It's not like they're going to hold them for the next morning.
Which, again, like if you have that connected to the idea that Switch, like additional hardware and accessories are selling really well, is exactly what GameStop wants to do. They want people wandering in there, buying it and buying an extra set of Joy-Cons.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so Target is also rumored to be getting some more this week, but it seems like none of these places are going to be getting a ton. It seems like about, like 5-10 per store.
Right, it's the trickle.
Yeah. But that if you're still looking for one, that checking your local GameStop, checking your local Target might be your best bet.
Yeah, I mean, we're back to the Wild West days of looking for a Wii.
Or like a 3DS or DS Lite.
Yeah. Yes, or even a new 3DS now. Like,
right.
They're tough to come by. You just kind of got to wander in. I I saw that we don't have a news item for this, but I wanted to bring it up sort of in the news. That Pokemon is the Game Freak, the developers of Pokemon, are hiring for a new console game that is in a popular RPG franchise, according to like the job listing. Everyone's assuming that is the new version of Pokemon, or possibly the Pokemon Stars or Eclipse, whatever we think the like beefed up version of Sun and Moon is going to be called. No confirmation on any of that. It's mostly rumor and hearsay. But
I mean, I feel like every year we hype up E3, and every year everybody's a little disappointed. But this seems like this could be
E3.
Seems like it could be a crazy E3 for Nintendo. Although that's not really how Nintendo operates.
No, they have their crazy time whenever they want to have it.
Yeah,
it's not about E3. It's about Nintendo's got something to tell you. But I mean, if at E3 they're like, yeah, all the stuff you already know about, like Splatoon, and ARMS, and also
ARMS will be out by that point.
Oh, ARMS will be out.
Because
That's right.
spring.
Earlier, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, I could totally see them doing a Legend of Zelda thing like they did for Breath of the Wild, where it's like, do you know what? Our entire booth is just Splatoon. And then we're just going to do some weird YouTube video with puppets in 3 weeks that blows out like every game.
Right. And then like stealth announces like Smash 5.
Yeah, like Reggie will mention it in some throwaway interview with Time Magazine.
He'll be wearing
something.
a pin.
Oh, Nintendo.
New releases?
So we talked about on the 23rd, bye-bye, Box Boy.
Bye-bye, Box Boy.
It's coming out. That may actually, because I haven't played any of the other two, they look and sound really fun. I may actually dig out my old 3DS, my old, tired, dusty 3DS.
It's the wind blowing through your abandoned 3DS.
Super Mario Run, which we mentioned, comes out on Android, and version 2.0 is launching on iOS. That's also on March 23rd. On March 24th, the 3DS Mario Sports Superstar comes out, and those amiibo cards that are stupid.
Crazy. Another thing I'd forgotten is actually coming out.
Apparently, I think it's already out in Europe, and I possibly has been out in Japan for a while, and the reviews seem to be pretty meh.
Yeah.
On Sports Superstars.
I think Mario sports games in general, the last generation or so, have been getting kind of like meh reception. Meh to meh.
Yeah.
Because Mario Tennis was widely panned by like everyone. The most recent tennis game, whatever it's called.
Remember the weird 4-on-4 basketball game that Square Enix developed for the DS? It was Mario licensed.
Yeah, it was 3-on-3.
Oh, 3-on-3.
Mario 3-on-3 hoops. Yeah, because it had like the black mage and the white mage in it as characters from Final Fantasy. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's all there was. It's like, hey, remember that thing?
Yeah.
And I mean, you did.
Hey, that's all this show is. Mark, let's move on to the news. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. Forgot the name of the segment. Whew. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of our show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. For the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, let's talk about sunburns.
Let's do it.
So you got a little bit of a sunburn this weekend.
I got super sunburned. I don't know if you can let me.
Oh,
on
yeah.
My neck
wow.
there. Yeah, the reason I'm wearing a high-collared shirt and a hoodie is to disguise the fact at work today that I got mega sunburned, so I didn't have to answer all day why I looked like that.
Right.
Or be ridiculed by my peers. Yeah.
It is amazing that you need to like see the pale skin in order to see how red the person has become.
So I went to the Antelope Valley Poppy Reserve this weekend.
Okay.
It's out by like Lancaster.
Super Bloom? For the Super Bloom because
oh yes. Yes. So and so it's just a really pretty area with rolling hills that you can climb up, and it's just areas of it are just like thick with poppies, with California poppies. And it was great. It was beautiful. It was a really nice day. Spent a few hours out there. and got roasted.
So let me ask, you did not prepare for
Uh,
being out in the sun all day
No.
at all?
No.
No sunscreen?
And I burn pretty easily, so I should have.
Right. Or like no hat.
Yeah.
What do you normally do to prevent yourself from getting sunburned?
Sunscreen.
Just sunscreen?
So I was in Mexico City recently,
Mhm.
and it was impossible to find sunscreen there.
Oh, weird. I mean, I guess not because white people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like they were just like, no.
No, we don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been doing to soothe yourself since you now are in a state of burn?
So I can't really feel it
Mm.
unless I apply pressure to it, and I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. So I'm worried about myself. Cuz it's as you can see, it's like burned,
Right.
but I like don't feel anything. I'm dead inside.
Right. And a little bit on the outside, it sounds
Clearly. From the outside in. Or from the inside out? From the inside out.
From all directions, going in all directions. So you're not doing like any aloe vera.
Apparently that's not a real thing.
What do you mean it's not a real thing?
I mean, apparently like aloe vera doesn't really have any healing properties for sunburns.
Yeah, I don't even know that it's necessarily meant to be healing so much as it is just soothing. That like you feel the cold sensation of like the menthol, and then you don't feel the heat.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, I don't. It's treating a symptom and not the core problem for sure.
What's the worst you've ever been sunburned?
I think the worst I've ever been sunburned coincides with a time when I got heat stroke, or at least some mild heat stroke.
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty bad.
It was shortly after I lived in Hawaii for a couple months.
Oh, we get it.
What do you get? Tell me what you get from that.
That island lifestyle. It's why you're so cool.
Yeah, man. It's the wrong island. Yeah, so shortly after moving there, had lived in Wisconsin and Chicago my entire life, right? So it was like I'm gonna go to the beach. I've been to beaches before, I get it. But I did not get being so much closer to the equator. And I didn't have sunscreen on, didn't have a hat or a shirt even. I was just like laying out on the beach for hours. And came back to my sister's house where I was living, and had like kind of a headache, and was like, I'm gonna take a nap before dinner. Slept through to the next morning, and then when I woke up, all I could do was like throw up for half an hour, and my skin was all red, and it was terrible. The sun and I were that day made mortal enemies. So yeah, I was horribly sunburned, and like took all night just for me to like become human again.
The worst sunburn I've ever seen was in high school.
You've ever seen?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it didn't happen to me.
Right.
But my friend Sean, we went to the beach, and he, like has that Norwegian skin that's like very pale but also like red sometimes, and just like naturally like their pigment is red.
He doesn't even have to be mad.
And he got so sunburned on his feet, on the top of his feet, that like they were just covered. Each one was covered in just one enormous blister.
Oh no.
So like when it was like reflecting off of the sand in his body and just like hitting his feet. So when he walked carefully, you could see like the pus inside the blister just like sloshing around. But we'll never know. We'll never know what happened.
We'll never know if he cured that or how he's doing right now. We were accompanied today by the pianist Armin Fuchs. By the way, if you have a recording of 433 that you would like us to use on this show, please send an email over to us. I think we're running out of them. It's got to be in front of an audience because otherwise we won't know when to stop talking.
It'll just be like 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence.
Yeah. So if you're in a group and you want to stage one of these things, do it. Put it up. Have people applaud at the end.
And send it to
Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com. And we'll filter that through all the Sonic DeviantArt we're about to get.
Oh yeah, man, we're asking for some fun stuff, Mark. That's going to bring us to our topic of the week. We're starting a new feature, right? Where we're going to talk about games that are probably going to be orphaned on the Wii U.
Patrick was one of the select few human beings
Yes, that's right.
that owned a Nintendo Wii U. I, as a huge Nintendo fanboy,
Mm-hmm.
did not own a Wii U.
And I came to mine kind of late in its life cycle. It had been probably 2 years before I actually bought it, year and a half maybe. That's a first for me to wait so long to pick up Nintendo hardware.
And even though I didn't own one, there are downsides to that because there are some great games on the Wii U that I will probably just never be able to play. There's some games that are just going to be orphaned on the Wii U.
Right, and some of that's going to be because of the way the game works with the hardware, and some of it is just going to be with today's example of Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze. They'll just make a new Donkey Kong Country Returns and probably Returns. It'll probably be in the Returns series.
Yeah, we were talking a little before the show began how there's Donkey Kong, there's Donkey Kong Country,
Right.
and there's Donkey Kong Country Returns, which are like 3 distinct franchises.
Right, and we are now in the Donkey Kong Country Returns series. There are, I guess, 2 or 3, depending on how you want to count it, because there's the 3DS version, which is the same game as the
Wii version.
but without motion controls.
So there's Donkey Kong Country Returns, which was released for the Wii, developed by Rare.
That's right.
There's Donkey Kong
No.
Country
Developed by Retro.
Retro.
Right.
Donkey Kong Country Returns 3DS that was developed by, I think, Monster Games helped out with that.
I think so. It's essentially a port.
But it's a port,
Mhm.
and then now Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, which
also retro.
Released in I think 2014.
Yeah, we'd have to check that, and we're not going to.
Nope.
But that is the game that we want to talk about. The game that we suspect will not be coming to other platforms,
but is by all accounts a really great game.
Yeah. So I came to the game pretty recently, and then Mark and I had a chance to sink some real hours into it on Saturday night. This was the first time that you can play this game 2-player simultaneous. Both of your characters run around on screen at the same time, sort of New Super Mario Brothers style. But unlike New Super Mario Brothers, you do not interfere with each other. Like, Mark and I aren't bumping into each other. We can both just sort of run independently. Which for a game as hard as this is absolutely necessary.
This game is really hard.
Brutal.
But fair.
Yes.
In a way that, like, the Donkey Kong Country Returns on Wii was similarly brutal but fair, and had a lot of annoyances around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the big failings of Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii was that you had to trigger a lot of Donkey Kong's moves by shaking the Wii remote, which is an imprecise input. Like, you can say whatever you want about it being like a more immersive thing, or whatever.
Good for like shooters.
Yeah, good for casual players. Anything, but it is not a precision instrument when you're shaking to trigger something. And you always need to be doing that in a Donkey Kong Country game. And so that's replaced by a button press in this version, like, solves it almost completely. So that still means that the game is like punishingly difficult. Mark and I are pretty good at platforming games. We've been playing them our whole lives. And we still there was not a single level that we played where we got all of the collectible items in it.
No.
Not one, not world one. We got like 7 out of 9 puzzle pieces.
And for the first like world, we were cruising along. We were like, oh, we have so many lives. We were feeling great. We're like,
yeah, that's
man,
true.
when I was playing the Wii, when we were playing the Wii game, we were like always so scrimping for lives. But this one we're doing fine. And then we hit like 2-1, 2-2, and we just tanked.
Oh yeah. No, all of that optimism like drips away when you get to World 2. But that is replaced with optimism for your experience.
Yeah, this game is always difficult, but I was never frustrated. Like,
Yeah.
like I always enjoyed it. And a lot of that is the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically for me, it was the way that the music melded with the levels
Yeah.
that made me
Mhm.
replaying segments over and over. Didn't trying to beat it didn't bother me because I was enjoying like the music and the way it all came together so much
Mhm.
that I was fine replaying those sections.
Yeah, and like the music is great, but it's not just the music. Like all the presentational aspects are excellent, right?
And they work together in
Yes.
a way that very few games and very few platformers, I can't think of any, work exactly like this.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are parts of the more recent Rayman games that are a little like that. Like I know there are music levels in the most recent Rayman games that kind of fold into what you're experiencing as you're experiencing it.
Yeah, so maybe we should be clear about what we're talking about because we're being just
Sure.
a tiny bit vague. So the way that the music and the levels work together is the music's like changes and is dynamic depending on what area of the level you're in.
Yes.
And also like world 2, 3, which I've been calling like hoot horn,
Horn top hop.
horn top hop. So there's little Swiss owls.
Right. You know they're Swiss because
There were
they're wearing
they're
lederhosen.
wearing, and they have those big like Ricola
Yeah.
horns,
Alpine horns.
alpine horns. But they are like playing music, or they are playing, blowing into the horns in time with the music.
Yes.
And so like there's a rhythm to the platforming.
Right, because when they blow the horn, either it like shoots a platform up, or like an enemy jumps out of their horn, or an item.
And it's all in time
Yes.
to the level's theme. And this is uh, contrasted with like say Super Mario Brothers, which has great over like music in the levels,
Mhm.
but it's the same song that plays throughout on repeat, and it doesn't change depending on like what you're doing in the level or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much music in this game, right? Like, we Mark and I started to like get excited about the general aesthetic of this game at the beginning of World 1, which is where we start to see these Swiss owls.
Or the beginning of
Or
World,
World 2,
2,
sorry.
because I hated World 1.
So, how would you characterize the aesthetic of World 1, and like why didn't it work for you?
So I've never really liked retro or rares,
Mhm.
like weird like googly eyed
Yeah.
like aesthetic.
Mhm.
And um
I think someone doing an impression of that, which is what retro sort of is, also doesn't do it any favors.
well it's, and it being in like high definition 3D
Yeah,
just
also
makes
weird.
it like aggressive,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh man, there's a cutscene at the beginning of this game where we meet the Kong family, and you can play as all four of these characters: Donkey, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky. And if you're keeping score, Dixie is the little girl Kong.
it was like shock blonde red hair or blonde hair.
Right. And but it's against her like monkey fur. It's alarming and disarming and looks like too real and too fake at the same time.
Yeah, and really like the what I love about the music didn't really kick in that first world. It's also um kind of feels been there done that, 'cause it's just tropical in theme. There's nothing interesting necessarily about the presentation
Yeah.
of the first world.
If so the second world is definitely this like German Swiss Alpine owl theme, and the third world is
Lion King on Broadway.
Lion King on Broadway. I would say that the theme of the first world is just Donkey Kong Country.
It wasn't until the boss of the first world, which is this seal that
Yeah.
has some personality in its animations, and the little penguin creatures are sitting on chairs in the back like they're watching.
Right.
That it was the first time that I felt like the game had personality. And
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
and then moving into World 2, and like that's when the music really began to like kick in a memorable way. And so it wasn't until World 2 that I was like, this game is awesome.
So we've got some of the music queued up here, Mark. Should we listen to a little bit of it from the beginning of World 2?
Yeah.
So this is some of the music from the Windmill Hills. And I believe, Mark, how did you characterize this?
Kind of like James Taylor-ish.
Kind of like James Taylor. So I'm just gonna turn that down while we talk over it because I like it so much.
And I mean,
just want it to be
this
there.
is where we began to die a lot.
Right, and where you start to. This video is 15 minutes and 29 seconds long of just this music. You're going to hear this music for at least that amount of time. Also, levels in this game are
So long.
they're so long.
They're so long.
Every level is so long.
Not this level. I think it's the next one was the first time you get to ride Rambi.
Yeah.
And every time we hit a checkpoint, we were like, this has to be the last checkpoint.
Nope. Keeps going. But so when we start this level 2-1, which is the Windmill Hills, that's when this sort of like European pastoral mountain town kind of aesthetic kicks in, and it all just feels so different and so fresh, especially compared to what came before.
Yeah, and like the enemy design still feels of the world, or like of like Donkey Kong Country. It feels like, but it's more appealing to me. Like the owls, little squat owls with their like.
Oh my god, the owls are so fat. I love them. Here, I'll stop this now. But yeah, it's amazing to me how bad of a first impression this game makes.
Yeah.
And then gets so cool as it goes on. Do we want to listen to a little bit of this horn top hop?
Yeah,
music?
we've talked about it. I think, and even in the music, you can. If you've never played the game, you can kind of get a sense for the mechanic we were talking about with these adorable owls.
Yeah, and this like
blowing
boom,
into the
boom.
alpine horns would work.
Those really bassy like horn notes, like it's so good and so full, and like I don't know, like as you're playing the game, you're already like amped up to do these things. It feels like such a complete experience to me.
And we should mention that David Wise
Mhm.
is the primary composer for Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, and you might recognize that game from the original Donkey Kong Country on the SNES or
Oh,
Donkey
yeah.
Kong Country 2. And he was not the composer for the original Donkey Kong Country Returns on Wii, but he
Interesting.
returned to the franchise for Tropical Freeze, and the music in this game is incredible.
Yeah. Well, and I think a huge step above what it was on the Wii.
Absolutely.
Man, so I kind of wanted to stop talking about it and just play this game now. There another level later in this in World 2 is the sawmill.
Right, which is a minecart level, which again is or is featured prominently in Donkey Kong Country.
Right, but unlike maybe calling it just a minecart level is like selling it short, because at some points you are on like a little boat.
Yeah, like a log that's been
Yeah,
sawed that is
exactly.
now like a log flume.
Right, you're on the log flume at Six Flags, and you're hopping around on this thing. And this has also awesome like progressive music that changes as you enter the sawmill and exit, and are like in the
In the water it changes, and it really did remind me of a when you're on a theme park ride.
Yeah.
And part of that is because so we would when as we were playing through and dying, we would be sent back to a checkpoint. And because the music is progressive and depends on what you're doing in the level, like when you first get out of the checkpoint, you have to jump into the cart or log for it to get going.
Yeah.
And there's such attention to detail in this game because when you land at the checkpoint, it plays a different theme. It's like holding music. And
Right.
then when you get into the log,
Right.
it starts up again because it's like time to your motions.
Right. And
in the game.
the holding music is also different from like the intro music because it knows that it has to like drop you in at a faster pace than if you started at the beginning of the level.
And it just reminded me of like a like if you're on a roller coaster with a soundtrack or like a ride at Disneyland where the computer knows you have to be in a certain location before it hits a cue. So there's like different music tracks for if it's just like, oh, I'm on Indiana Jones and I'm idling. I'm not going to play the bridge cue until I've actually like hit that part of the ride.
Right. And it all seems like such like base intuitive stuff, but like games just don't play that way. You know, like that's not the way music works in video games. But it totally does here, and it's awesome. We've got a little bit of the like high energy sawmill thrill music here, so let's listen to a little bit of that.
And when you're listening to that, you can hear that moment when the music changes, and that's when you are in the log flume and going underwater and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Man, just some of the qualities of the sounds in this are so cool. Like the kind of like repeated just like low bowed string bass is really neat. And there's also this, I don't know, it's almost like a low saw or something that's like very like floppy sounding in its bass.
I mean, this turned into a stealth music episode, but it's so much tied to what makes this game awesome.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I think as we were playing it, that's what you and I were commenting on most. Like that's most of what we were experiencing was this musical journey, which is just in the background of a tough platforming game.
Yeah, which is very well done. Like the fact that we're focusing on the presentation is credit to Retro and how like well it controls and how it feels like right. Like you're never fighting the game.
Yeah.
And that has to be incredibly difficult to test and, like program, but it feels effortless and seamless, and that's pretty incredible. Again, it's not like the Wii version where you sometimes felt like you were fighting it.
Yeah.
This just works, and as we all know, like just works is incredibly hard to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think there probably are systems in here that, like, if we had messed around with them more, we would have been like, oh, this either doesn't work or is redundant. Like, there's a store in the game where you can. We just used it to buy more lives. We were cocky, but we needed them. And there are like other power ups or little buffs that you can put on the characters, but it's all kind of just like you don't need it.
And when you're like, one of the things you could do in Donkey Kong Country that you can't really accomplish in this, at least not with the characters we were playing, is when there's like a coin or a item you want to pick up that's like on spikes or something, and you used to be able to like roll and then do a jump out of it, and you can't really accomplish that
You still
as like
sorta
Diddy
can.
and stuff.
Oh,
I guess you were able to pull it off.
Yeah.
But
Well, I guess I don't know what the experience of playing as Diddy is like. So all four of the characters control differently, and someone always has to be Donkey Kong. Diddy's got like a little bit of a hover jump. Dixie has another like kind of jump assist where she gets to go a little bit higher.
With using her like pigtails.
Yeah, her hair spins around. They're not great depictions of female characters in this game.
At least there's no candy,
At least there's no candy,
which
Kong.
I don't think I could handle in high definition.
No,
It'd be too disturbing.
horrifying. But I mean, there is a Funky Kong. You can't play as him, but he's there. He's also terrifying.
He's also awful. You realize how like bad most of the like a lot of the characters. At least there's no baby. Also mercifully.
Right. And then Cranky Kong is the fourth playable character.
Yes.
And he kind of does a Scrooge McDuck pogo stick sort of thing with his cane. All canes in video games are pogo sticks. So yeah, we were only really playing as Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, and when I say really, I mean we
exclusively.
Really,
Yeah,
that was
really.
it. Yeah.
True to our word.
So what were we driving at there? Oh, that there
are some like quibbles with
right.
it.
Like it would have been nice if we could have changed to other characters on the fly or to start the level new. It also would have been nice if I didn't have to be Donkey Kong. Like if we could have played as Diddy and Cranky or Diddy and Dixie or whomever. Would have been nice. So I mean, like it still has weird little hang-ups, but overall, like I want to get back to it. You left my house on Saturday night because you were like gonna go home, and then realized that you had some extra time, and you were like,
"Do you want to play some more?
Can we keep playing?" Yeah. Do we want to play a little bit of or talk about the Lion King on Broadway
level?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would like to mention that one of the things that's very cool about it is how different each world seems to be. There's the tropic, and we're not super far into the game.
No, we're only 3 worlds in.
But you go from like tropical to this like alpine level to Africa inspired,
specifically
Lion King on Broadway, like very specifically. The first level is all like giraffe puppets.
Yeah. Like tall giraffe puppets. I like that this isn't the same like kind of progression of levels where it's like forest, desert, lava level, ice level, whatever. That like the idea of Lion King on Broadway and like Alpine Village, that those are different world types than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and not just in Donkey Kong games, but in platformers in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mario's a big offender there of like, what do you want? Desert? You want a cave? We can do those. Yeah, do we want Mark and I almost freaked out hearing the music in World 3-1, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, we should
and
play
then we sang along.
We sang along.
Yeah. Let's listen. I would happily just listen to that and continue to sway with you for the next 20 minutes. But
yeah, because in the game, in this first level 3-1, the trees are swaying in time to this music, and you're like platforming on some of the branches. But the entire world is like moving with the music, and it's very addicting.
Yeah, every part of this game loves the music, which is great. We want to talk about the bosses a little bit?
Yeah.
So we did 2 big boss fights in this. We did the World 1 boss, which was that seal that Mark was talking about, who had a lot of personality in the way he was animated. And the World 2 boss, which was an owl.
A big owl.
A big fat owl.
Who like... I actually kind of love the intro to this boss.
Yeah.
Where like Donkey and Diddy like run in.
And there's a banana.
And there's a banana on like a
Like a
stump
stump,
or
yeah.
something, and the owl in the boss from the shadows like smashes it with a mallet, and Donkey and Diddy go, and then all the owls turn around and you see their eyes. It's pretty great.
Yeah, so these boss fights they're long.
Yeah, like the levels of the game, they're a little like we have to be done. Oh, we're not. Oh, we still have
gotta
to do
keep
this.
going?
There's another phase of this.
Right, we've got to figure out a new pattern
Mm.
and avoid that. And I mean, they were just the first two bosses, so neither of them seemed overly hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it took us a while to figure out how to beat that second one, right?
Right.
But I guess once you figure it out, it doesn't take you too long to like progress through the levels again, or like through the phases of them again. But it is worth noting that like the bosses in this game take longer than you think they're going to, or than you would expect a boss level to take in a Donkey Kong Country game.
And maybe because we're just recently playing The Legend of Zelda, and those bosses are like just do you do like one thing.
Right.
You think those are going to be difficult, and they end up being the opposite.
They end up being nothing. Yeah, there is no stab the enemy twice and he dies in Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze.
The thing I think is funny about this game is the presentation and just like the marketing and the character design is so adorable, but this game is brutally difficult.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like I imagine there could be parents buying this for their children
who will never see World 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you're a kid, you maybe have more time and patience to put into like figuring it out. But this is not a game where I was just like, oh, it's hard, I'm done with it. Like this is a game where it was difficult, but I wanted to keep going.
Yeah, and I want to get back to it. So, do we want to at all like fold in like why we think this won't come to the Switch? Or I mean, for my money, I'm just assuming that probably Retro is just working on the next entry in this series, and that's what we'll see on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Because the game does literally nothing with the gamepad, nothing. Like that.
Yeah, like it doesn't even. There's no graphic no static graphic, no map, no nothing.
No nothing.
It's just a blank screen. It's not off.
Right.
The gamepad's not turned off.
It
it's
is just
still
showing
on.
black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no reason in that regard that it couldn't come to the Switch like other Wii U games that require the gamepad.
Right. It seems to me like if it takes like any effort to port it over, like they may as well just make a new one. Maybe even with a lot of the same assets or whatever. But I mean this game also isn't like a super sticky piece of, or like a super unique piece of software like Mario Kart 8 is, or like Splatoon was. And I know Splatoon 2 is technically a new Splatoon game, but it's basically a version of Splatoon for Switch. And this is just sort of like another entry in the Donkey Kong Country Returns series. And I think it's more special than that, but I don't think it was seen as more special than that.
I agree. I think it's a hidden gem on the Wii U. And I guess maybe not even a hidden gem because it was promoted well. I think it's sold
It's a
pretty
Donkey
well
Kong
for
Country game.
Yeah, but I think it does seem like destined to stay on the Wii U, at least for a few generations until Wii U games.
Right, until there's
like
a weird
virtual console with Wii U games on it.
I mean, I think there will come a time when people realize that they slept on the Wii U and that like they want to play some of those games that there's no way to play them anymore.
Yeah, like a Super Mario 3D World.
Mm-hmm. Great game. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Great game. Pikmin 3. Great game. And there are going to be others that we're going to try as part of this series, like Bayonetta 2. Maybe doesn't belong. This next one maybe doesn't belong in like it's so good and it's orphaned, but like Star Fox. We're never going to see that on another platform. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this series because I feel bad for the for the Wii U.
Yeah, and as someone who didn't own a Wii U, I'm excited to get to play some of these games
Mhm.
that I think are probably like Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, where I knew about it. I liked the Wii game enough, but I wasn't like in love with it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't super sad to have missed it. But now that I'm actually before I played it, but now that I'm actually played it and had some hands on and am seriously in love with the soundtrack,
Yeah.
I'm bummed that I haven't played through the whole thing already.
Well, there's time. We got it, Mark. We can play through it. All right, let's close up this segment. If you have any experience or memories with Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, or
What a mouthful that
I know
name is.
it's called or any of the Donkey Kong Country games, or any of the Donkey Kong Country Returns games, you can always write into us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
At gmail.com.
Or if you have any suggestions for these games that we should cover for this series or anything like that, write in with anything. We're happy to discuss your conversation topics or anything like that. Mark, anything else to add before we wrap things up for tonight?
On Thursday, look forward to the delayed but now on schedule an episode of NCS Classic Edition.
That's right, featuring
Let-
levels 7 through no
levels 4
4
through
through-
7. 4, 5, 6, 6.
4, 5, 6.
Oh gosh.
4 through 6. Let's start the whole episode over. Episodes 4 through levels 4 through 6 of the original Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
Um
You will probably complete that in the amount of time it took for us to explain that.
I think that's right. But those are good episodes. We had fun playing and recording those. So that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, you can always follow us on Twitter at NinCart Society. Check out the Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you have a second, we would love for you to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Also, tell someone about the podcast. You know someone. Very good. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, you can always get more of those by reading what we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can find more of 8-Bit Betty's music on 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying, of course climate change is real. It's an urgent concern. We all need to address it, and this is not a joke. Thanks for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?